I guess I'm supposed to stand up. My name's Dave Feller. I'm the Planning Commission here at the City of Franklin. A couple of comments. One is, one of the things that I think a lot of people in our community don't understand is the separation between the school board and the city itself. They look at the property tax, they see it as a monolithic, that everybody pays the same amount of property tax. And they don't understand that when the city, which can benefit from a TIF district or a bid district, and you would think the school would benefit when businesses come in, because even though the Supreme Court says businesses are people, I don't think they've had kids yet. So the schools like it when they move in because they don't bring in the expense of children, but they also bring in the revenues they do from the businesses. But when a TIF comes in, the city gets their expenses and their costs are recouped in the TIF, but the property tax doesn't go up. I would like one question. I've been told it doesn't matter about the TIFs because there's the cap. I don't agree with that. I'm trying to figure it out on my own. I'm an environmental engineer. I'm not a finance guy. I'd like that to explain to me. Second question, if the licensing of teachers is changed, if they change the licensing of teachers, does that mean the teachers who now have to invest their personal funds now to go get a degree, which apparently under the new guidelines will not get them anything, they won't get any pay raises because tenure or amount of education is not really used, at least in the city, in Franklin, in their school district, is not used to reward teachers with a higher pay. Will they have to go back and get this licensing? That's the two questions I have. The third thing, sorry, one more last little comment. What I find, my argument has been, and I've had this discussion with our school board here in Franklin, and I've had this discussion at other school boards. Sewer PAC has done a study, Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission has done a study that shows the top 5 reasons that people move into a city is schools, 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 schools. My concern is, as different cities and communities don't understand that when their neighboring communities invest in the schools, Whitnall is investing in their schools or is going to try to invest in their schools, the city will lose. And people that are concerned about property tax, businesses are not going to go to those cities where there are failing schools or schools that are teetering on failure. They're going to move to those areas where the schools are basically better financed. And in full disclosure, my wife is a teacher.
Okay, well, I'm going to do my best to answer those. I'm going to start with your last one first, so it's fresh in my mind. You're right, schools are a vital role in our community. If rural schools, especially in rural areas of Wisconsin, I mean, if they lose their only school, that community will effectively disappear, within the next decade, I would assume. That's another proposal in the governor's budget, proposes ranking schools A through F. Schools are just like any other data source. They go on a bell curve. The majority of people fall somewhere in the middle, and that means that about 60% of our schools would be C schools. I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger and I came home with a C, my parents were like, that's not meeting expectations. Let's go up to your room and do some more work. Like, that's not cool with us. And actually, the average student in Wisconsin, the average score is more like a B. Right now, we do a 1 through 100 point system, so it's pretty clear. You can tell it's a 79. They're, close to exceeding some expectations, but they're meeting all of the ones we expect of them. I wonder how the Wisconsin realtors would feel about 60% of the schools in the state being labeled C and how that would attract more businesses, because if I was a business owner, I would think, well, I'm going to find someplace else that's a B or an A. And I don't really think that 60% of our schools are C's, but if you follow the budget's proposal, that's what would end up happening. Second, the teacher licensure plan. Yes, it's a major concern. Obviously, we respect the great work in the teacher preparation programs that are accredited through the state of Wisconsin that lead to a educator's license. I would say my easy answer to that is to all the students, if I was going to be a teacher, the answers are in the back of the book. You don't need to just know content information. You need to know how to relay that information to students. And I think the goal behind the alternative licensure was to bring some really strong professionals in and have them teach some classes, but I'm not sure. I think this is a pretty good applicable phrase, market drives. I don't think there's any time soon going to be a nuclear engineer who all of a sudden decides that the market is going to drive him to a higher salary in a school district. I mean, I just don't see that happening. So the alternative licensure would definitely, I think shows a lack of respect towards people who have followed the educator preparation programs, because really, you know, content is one thing, but learning how to relay that information to students, I mean, wasn't that long ago, I remember what I was like as a 7th grader, and it was not pretty. Like, I would not want to have to deal with me, or try to relay content knowledge to someone like me back then. So the alternative licensure proposal is definitely to be discussed. We currently have 7 different ways to become a teacher in Wisconsin already to get a license. So there's lots of different pathways, whether you're a traditional, you leave high school and you go right on to college and pursue your career as an educator, or if you have some career experience and you come back in and you want to get licensed, maybe through an emergency instructional permit where you can actually be in the classroom and then get your educational license through that experience. I mean, we have some other kind of creative ways to leverage professional experience. So I think that's going to be an ongoing conversation. And then about the TIF question. That's definitely, I would say, more of a Bob Lang style question. If anyone knows Bob Lang, he's the head of the Legislative Fiscal Bureau and basically a genius. But what happens with a TIF district is that property value doesn't get counted towards the tax rolls. And you know, it's different in every situation, because if the property was undeveloped in the first place, they might not have been receiving, you know, a huge increase from that. But as TIF districts expand, dissolve, create bigger boundaries, bring in more businesses, it certainly does have, I would say, an effect on the potential increase of revenue. It would be hard to put hard numbers on that or make a guess. It would be, you know, different in every situation. But certainly there are some TIF bills moving through the legislature right now, which would make it easier to create TIFs and provide some flexibility in the percentage that they can bond against. So that's a concern, and we don't know how that would all work out, but yeah, it goes through equalization aid formula, and it would be different for everyone.
I'm just going to say one thing about teachers, because it's on my mind. The defunding of education is really hurting our teachers. They work so hard. They put in all those extra hours. They're feeling so much pressure now with the whole educator effectiveness stuff, which is actually, you know, if it's done right, could really help them be better. We're all struggling, some of us, with how do you give teachers increases now because we don't have the steps in the lanes. I mean, they're just going through so much, new standards, new tests, and educator effectiveness. And I just, as a school board, we try to recognize and thank them as much as we can, because the defunding is not helping us to, I think, give them the financial rewards they deserve.